Today we're going to be working in section 6.2, and we're looking at combining and transforming random variables. So in 6.1 we start working with random variables, knowing what the definition of one is and the basics of how you're going to work with them, which is a lot of a review from what we've done in previous chapters. And now in 6.2 we're going to be working on how to work with multiple random variables, or how to combine or change the random variables we're working with. So a large auto dealership keeps track of sales made during each hour of the day. Let X equal the number of cars sold during the first hour of business on a randomly selected Friday. Based on previous records, the probability distribution of X is as follows. It gives us a number of cars sold and then the probability of selling that number of cars. So the random variable X has mean mu of X equal to 1.1 and standard deviation sigma of X equal to 0.943. Suppose a dealership's manager receives a $500 bonus from the company for each car sold. Let Y equal bonus received from car sales during the first hour on a randomly selected Friday. Find the mean and standard deviation of Y. So we are going to start by defining Y. So there it goes. Y is going to be equal to the $500 bonus times X, because everything would be getting multiplied by 500. So then if we know that Y equals 500 times X, that's telling us what's happening, or how our variable X is being transformed. So if you look on page 366, there's that yellow box that says effect on a random variable of multiplying or dividing by a constant. In this case, we're multiplying by the constant of 500. So on the very first bullet, it says that if we're multiplying by a positive number, then it's going to multiply the measure of center and the location. So in other words, to find the mean of Y, this pen's not going to want to work with me. To find the mean of Y, we're just going to do 500 times the mean of X, which is 500 times 1.1, and that gives us a mean of $550. Then to find the standard deviation, looking at the second bullet on page 366, it says it multiplies measures of spread. So if we multiply by a positive number, we're also going to multiply the measure of spread. So sigma of Y is going to be just like we did for the mean. We're going to do 500 times the measure of spread, or our standard deviation of X. So that's going to be 500 times 0.943, and that gives us $471.50. And then make sure you just pay attention to that last bullet point. Multiplying by a positive number will not change the shape of the distribution. The shape is still going to look the same. All right, so moving on to number 2. It says to encourage customers to buy cars on Friday mornings, the manager spends $75 to provide coffee and donuts. The manager's new profit T on a randomly selected Friday is the bonus earned minus the $75. Find the mean and standard deviation of T. So remember, we're still dealing with the manager who's earning that bonus. So we're dealing with the variable Y, and now we're going to introduce this extra part to it where he's buying the coffee and the donuts. So we have this new variable T where we take our Y and subtract 75, because that's how much he's paying for the donuts. So now instead of multiplying or dividing, we're going to be adding or subtracting, in this case subtracting. So on page 367, again in the yellow box, you have the blue header, effect on a random variable of adding or subtracting a constant. And it says adding the same positive number, A, to, or subtracting, same thing, to each value of a random variable. For the first bullet point, it says adds A, or subtracts, to the measure of center and location. So when we're finding our measure of center here, our mu of T, we're going to do just exactly the same thing. We're going to take the mean of Y, which was 550, and we're going to subtract the 75, which gives us $475 for our mean. Then for our standard deviation, we're going to read that next bullet point. Does not change the shape or measures of spread. So adding or subtracting is going to move it, but it's not going to change our measure of spread. So our mean of t is going to be equal to, the standard deviation of t is going to be equal to the standard deviation of y, which was 471.50. Make sure you really read through those yellow boxes. One of the biggest things students do is they forget to memorize these. These are not rules on the resource packet, so you're going to have to memorize these. Make sure you really know those.